I'm Carly Myers, joined by Sook-Yin Lee, the multi-talented Sook-Yin Lee. It's a pleasure to meet you. I think the most important question these days is, how are you, really?
You know, it's a hard time right now. There's lots of intense stuff going on, a lot of illness, the COVID situation. We're all down, locked in our, what is it called again? Home. We have to
Stay at
stay
home order, gray lockdown, who knows these
I
days?
mean, here we are, you know, sequestered in our spaces. Um, and given the circumstances, I'm just rolling with it, you know?
The new album is Jooj 2, and it is a collaboration with Adam, your late partner. Now, you completed the album. It's out now. And I want you to describe like how it feels to put a bow on something, and maybe it's not a bow, but to complete something and to release it and to share it, because yes, it is the art, but it's also the memories
Mm.
and the process, and to share that with the world. How does that feel?
I'm very happy. You know, of course, losing Adam has been like my own personal 9/11. It's been incredibly life-altering and difficult process because he was my best friend and just my I call him my twin flame. I just learned that definition, and that's two people who are almost like so synonymous. They're one. We were very, very close, and we had been together for over 12 years and had such great times making work together. We choreographed dance, he edited my movie scripts, and we had such a great time making this album together. We recorded ourselves right on this computer that I'm speaking to you on in our space. And it just delighted us. We had such a synchronistic process of making it. He passed when 80% of it was done. And I knew it was just a matter of time. It was very shocking and difficult for me to adjust to life without him in this corporeal realm and the physical realm. But I knew, and I had no doubt that I would share it with the world, because there was some very, very special chemistry going on in the work, and work that we just so loved. And it's an interesting album that, unbeknownst to us, it just comes at a time when there's so much loss. With the pandemic, people have lost their loved ones, lost their health, lost their livelihoods, lost the city they know. So we're all thrown into this kind of mysterious and unknowable, kind of difficult place, sequestered in our homes, all navigating this together. And there is something about loss and resilience and accepting the difficult, and also the joy, and dancing to the kind of chaos of the world that is somehow imbibed in this album, that is really resonating with people. And I don't, you'll be editing this, and I don't know if you'll keep it, but I must warn your listeners that I'm going to be talking about some difficult stuff with Adam. We're going to be talking about suicide. And so Adam is abundantly joyful and life-loving as he was. He suffered from anxiety, and that was, in the last few years, coming to the fore. He was wrestling with his place in the world, the difficulty of, making a living, all of these different things that so many people feel he felt. And that was something many, many people feel. So he decided to go to a drop-in center, a mental health drop-in center, to get anxiety medication. And within a 22-minute diagnosis with doctors who he had never met, they gave him a potpourri of drugs, pharmaceuticals. Now, some people, these pharmaceuticals will help, but our brain chemistries are very unique. Unfortunately, Adam was in the group that it just wreaked havoc. He had a very, very debilitating response to these drugs, and the anxiety ended up shooting even worse. And by the time he was shunted from one doctor to the next, they kept changing it up and putting them on drugs that the other one didn't want, and so forth. And it was a very, very, very painful process. It was only until he passed that I was able to understand the depth of the pain that he was feeling. I received his computer and his emails, and looked at our emails, and his friends shared his emails, so that I could put together his medical timeline. And it's very messy. He fell through the cracks of our healthcare system. And I wish to to speak about that, but also not define him by the difficulty of the end. You know, he was much more than that. He was a really beautiful, incredible thinker and being, and you know, much of his spirit is inscribed in the music and in his writing, which is a big part of why I want to share his work. And so this particular video, Run Away With Her, it's a song that Adam and I wrote together. Really, we were like, wow, this sounds so cool. Again, one of those songs we were like, really loved. It has a kind of retro vibe to it, and it's very much a dance song. And I take the journey through very many spaces that I discovered during the pandemic, leading me down to Lake Ontario, to where Adam's memorial bench is. And it's a very special, magical spot, because whenever I go there, and it's, you know, even if it's raining, the sun always breaks through the clouds and it stops raining and the sun beats down. We moved down there, went through the kind of city, past this crazy intense highway of cars that brought us down to Lake Ontario. And just as we arrived, the most extraordinary sunset is captured at the end of the video. And in my heart, I see this sun as Adam. And so that's Run Away With Her.
correct me if I'm wrong here, your father's from Hong Kong and your mother's from China. And I wanted to ask you about this awful spike that we're seeing in hate crimes against Asian Americans, not only because, you know, you're a broadcaster and you've worked in the media, but you're also a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was when the Atlanta shootings occurred, it was just like a punch in the gut. I knew that every Asian American felt that on so many levels. Like, it brought back to mind, you know, all of those times of every Asian person has been on the receiving line of prejudice and ignorance, and in other words, hate. I immediately thought of my family and my friends and reached out to my friends and family just to, you know, touch base with them, see if they're okay, just to talk about this stuff. My immediate thing was to extend, you know, on social media, we're talking. My immediate thing was to extend love to my brothers and sisters, my family, my Asian family. I ran into my friend Hania that day, and you know, we were all talking, and she was like, "Fuck, I just woke up so crying all night." And she woke up and she said, "I decided I'm going to look really good today." And so she dressed up like spectacularly. She had these like glass high heels on, and she looked like $1 billion. I was like, yes, you know, there's the element of sex work too, you know, and or, you know, migrant workers or massage, you know, the women in the massage work. It hasn't been, you know, there have been explicitly, people are not, I mean, there's some people that are talking about the sex work aspect of that. And many are ignoring it, just like people don't want to talk about the things that make us uncomfortable, what have you. But it's a reality. And, you know, there are some brave people that are venturing into the conversation around the decriminalization of sex work. That is a very important topic because they're at risk. We're talking about people who choose to pursue that line of work. We're not talking about the conflating of sex trafficking and sex work.
No, we're talking about consensual jobs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So oftentimes, unfortunately, those two arguments are stuck together when they're very different.
Very different.
And then that gives the law justification to like clamp down on everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this has given rise to like being able to talk about the challenges and difficulties that migrant workers, sex workers face that put them in peril. And so, you know, that's a very important part of this whole discussion. And then many things to spiral out. Like now I'm seeing there's a lot of talk about the sort of over-sexualization of women. You know, what's it called again? Sort of like exotification of the Asian woman. They're, you know, Susie Wong, and, you know, or kind of like, there was this thing I read, the CBC had a panel discussion where there was a film critic who was like citing historically, you know, the adventures of Susie Wong. I think it was like a 1940s movie series where it's like a really sexy, you know, subservient Asian woman who wears, you know, silk gowns and stuff like that, and is like mysterious, and, you know, like that whole Madame Butterfly, you know, subservience, and I'm there to serve you. And so there's a kind of kickback about the sort of sexualization. At the same time, I really want for women to feel empowered by their sexuality as well, and not feel like they have to shut it down. It's really important that we don't, like, part of this conversation was like, what I get frustrated by is the message to be afraid. Like, in fact, one of the guests was like, I don't even go out of my house anymore because I'm a woman and I can get attacked.
Yeah.
And I just like, I understand those fears, but at the same time, I'm not going to let that make me debilitated so that I can't go out, nor am I going to let my sexuality be frozen so as to like suddenly like what? I'm just like, you know, cover, like be a total like mole person and stay at home. Like, we have to be careful that we don't let these fears dictate us to be scared.
Just like, you know. And it's important that people speak up. Like what was I reading the other day? This is so trivial to me. Lola Bunny. Remember Space Jam? And the girl bunny, she was like Bugs Bunny's girlfriend, but
Oh, right.
she was hot for a
Right.
cartoon character bunny. She was hot. And so in this new one, they've taken away her boobs and they've given her a higher neckline because they want her to seem like a stronger character because she couldn't be both sexy and strong, apparently.
Yeah, it's just very weird.
I know, it's so weird. And people are trying to, you know, let's not sexualize women, but in the meantime, taking away the free will to just feel sexy and wear what you want. And it's a fine line. I don't know.
It's pretty crazy, you know. Yeah, and usually, you know, who makes those decisions? You know, and when I looked at the article that I'm speaking about, that seemed to be to proffer more fear, it wasn't even an Asian woman or, you know, a woman who wrote that article.
Which is the problem.
There's a problem. And so, you know, whoever decided to make the bunny, you know, like having to wear whatever. I mean,
Turtleneck.
A turtleneck, a scuba suit. But even scuba suit would be sexy. That's too sexy. You know,
too tight.
We've come out with a series of music videos for this album. My friend Dylan and I have been making a series of videos. And then I just found out from the record company that YouTube feels it's too sexual and has kind of like squashed it down, like won't help to, you know, amplify it. They're
Can
like,
we include it?
Yes, you can.
Okay, cool. Let's start with that one. How about that?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, this video, you know, you don't wear a turtleneck in bed. So I'm wearing a full coverage undershirt and full coverage granny underwear as regular, like it's like a billion times more than a bathing suit. And I'm just like doing different things. It was a completely feminist, completely empowering expression that I wish to make, only to be met by an over-sexualized perspective of that, to say that it was wrong, to say we're going to squish it down. There's something very messed up in that. It's very sick, and it's not even explicit. I'm the only one in the bed, and that somebody is somewhere deemed that.
And from what I saw, the movements are very like avant-garde, like almost as if you're sort of possessed with your own demons. And I didn't see you twerking, but again, there's nothing wrong with twerking. They're doing it on the Grammys. So.
Exactly.
All of the beggars
Adam and I were, he had an extraordinary love of music. I'm very grateful to have inherited his Spotify account because he bookmarked all of his favorite albums, and they're so incredibly wide reaching, from, very, very old time jazz, to music from around the world, to all kinds of, hip hop and rap and just great music. And he was a lover of pop hooks. And we were both very experimental and creative people. But with this album, there's a propulsive energy to it. There's a lot of embrace of various kinds of music. With this one in particular, the melody that came out of me really it reminded us of like Serge Gainsbourg, kind of, French pop music from the 70s. And so in piecing together this music video, Dylan and I really wanted to imbibe that. So I have kind of my hair up in a kind of like, waterfall, and I've got like this gorgeous like 1970s dress that I got at a secondhand store, and kind of incorporated elements of those historical feelings, and also German expressionism. There's a sort of passage where I kind of embodied like a silent era, kind of like very highly emotive, theatrical, hold those postures. And there's a kind of a cult feeling of chance, this idea that life is kind of a dice roll. Life is unknowable and very mysterious. So there's sort of like, there are cards in a deck. We sort of confabulated our own kind of like mystery, so that you could see the roll of the dice, and that brings us to the next section and so forth. And throughout this, there's one part where I'm an artist trying to capture an image, and it's elusive. I'm trying to paint all these things. And keep in mind, this entire video is being shot in my home. Because we're in lockdown. So we're, traveling very many different worlds. I live in an 11-foot wide row house, and we were able to kind of go and expansively explore these worlds. And so in that one world, I'm an artist in my studio. So I just got a JPEG of like an art studio and put it in the background, and like green screened me painting. And I'm elusively searching and trying to capture something. And finally I'm able to, and I look down, and it's a painting of Adam.
Nowhere I can stay, you will make it wrong, and I'm on the run. I can't get along. She will break him down. On a creek I'm gone. All the parts are tight. Take care, Apollo. Oh my coward. She'll revile him. Dynamite. Cut back. All laughing to settle up with him, and I love my life, and banana rides to your better life.
So wonderful to speak with you,
Yeah,
Carly.
you too. Friends on, and listen, stay safe, and I mean, shit, keep on keeping on, right?
Yeah, you too.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.